Hello everyone and welcome back to the PE Insights podcast, conversations about physical education with me, your host Nathan Walker, brought to you by the fantastic team at PE Scholar. I hope you had a great break. I hope you're ready for term 3, refreshed and recharged, and I also hope you're looking forward to another episode. In this one, I have a conversation with Martin Brockman, and we discuss everything PE, sports coaching, athletics, and more importantly, the word performance, and a few other words as well. I hope you look forward to this one as much as I did when I had a chat with Martin. We've had a couple of conversations online. It's always great to meet in person and discuss the subject that we love so much. So, as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Martin, welcome to the PE Insights podcast.
Thanks, Nathan. But nice to finally meet in person after bouncing around on the internet for far too long.
Yeah, social media is an incredible place, isn't it? And you have millions of conversations with people, and then you actually finally meet them, and it's quite a nice moment. So, thanks for coming on, and thanks for supporting your, the Performance Pathways gear today as well. And hopefully, we'll delve into that a little bit later on. We always start with this question. I just want the listeners to have a bit of context about you and who you are. Maybe we should start about you as an athlete first.
Yeah, I mean, my background was I was a decathlete, competed for Great Britain for around 10 years. Very much leaving school, I was the multi-sports kid, was in every school team, but kind of like the 11th player in the football team and the 5th guy on the basketball team. That was me, could do anything particularly great. Fell into athletics and fell in love with athletics and became basically the same guy within athletics, which was I'm not particularly good at anything. Didn't make the English Schools Championships until my final year. So I was 17, 18, and therefore did decathlon because I was the guy fielding for everything. But slowly over time got better at all those events and went from leaving school as this kind of odd jobs guy. And 4 years later, won a bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games, which was supposed to be my stepping stone towards the London 2012 Olympics. That didn't go to plan. Turns out it's really hard to qualify for the Olympics. But then I did the Games in Glasgow 2014. Was kind of my last real big thing. So I did those two Commonwealth Games and then drifted into coaching after that. Or I'd started coaching when I was 16. So by the time I retired, a 28-year-old, I'd already been coaching for 12 years. So the transition into coaching, and then that led me out to Qatar, where I started working at Aspire Academy.
Yeah. This is an interesting question, I guess, for a decathlete, but was there a favourite discipline or what was the favourite activity?
It's very much a love-hate relationship with most of them. So there's my best event was the high jump. So I had to make a choice at some point, as most people do. Do I go to the high jump or go to my favourite event, so the high jump, or do I do decathlon? And I basically decided that there's only so many times you can jump over a stick before it gets boring. And two, I had to make the choice of do I lose 10 kilos and become a high jumper? And at that point, I was only 88 kilos or something for about 6'6", or I can add 10 kilos and become a decathlete, and that sounds much more fun. So high jump was my best event. So I knew in competition that I was probably going to win, which is quite fun. But pole vault's really fun when it's going well, terrifying when it's going really badly.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Discus was my least favourite event, but then became my favourite event as I got older, which was quite interesting.
And has discus become one of your favourite events to coach and teach as well?
No, it's
or is it
one
it's a tricky
notoriously difficult to teach. Because people get obsessed with getting it to fly right, and actually, if you focus on everything before the release, teaching the turn and its postural control, it's very much like a dance, much more like think of it like gymnastic or dance. Then you start to find a rhythm and a flow, and the flight comes easily. But people think it's like the shot put and you have to throw it really hard. And then when you throw it hard, it's a disaster. It's all about timing and rhythm. And that's why I started to enjoy it as I got older. When you get a bit older, a bit slower, a bit heavier, and your body starts to ache a bit more, going out and throwing some discus in the sunshine becomes a really pleasurable thing to do.
Like a round of golf. Yeah. It's interesting you talk about high jump as your favourite because you made the move to Qatar, and obviously Qatar has Mutabashim. They're infamous or famous high jumper. Tell us a little bit about the move to Doha and what your role was when you were there.
Well, I was coaching for Brunel University, coaching their Bucks team, the university team, and I had a coach came to visit my squad, who's a very good shot. So throws weren't necessarily my thing as an athlete, and therefore not really my thing as a coach. We brought a coach in to support some training sessions, and he knew the head coach at Aspire, who happened to be looking for a coach, and said, "I've just visited this guy. He seems like he's really good. It would be a great fit." And they basically connected and invited me over, invited me for an interview. And 3 months later, I was in Qatar. So I went there though as bottom of the pile, working with the development group. So the 11 to 14-year-olds, coaching multiple events. It's kids come in, they don't really know athletics, give them a really good start, which obviously you can do from a decathlon background. And then I took some athletes through to, as my athletes were leaving that stage, the jumps coach left. So I took some of my athletes through to become the jumps coach, which was obviously then my strongest suit. So I then coached jumps for a couple of years as senior jumps coach, and then went back to basically run the whole pathway from as they come into the academy at 11 years old. What does that journey look like as an athlete? Trying all the events, discovering what you're good at, learning about training, and then moving them into the event group that they're going to move into. So I basically started to build that program out for them.
Yeah. And then we talked about this previously, but then towards the end of that, you started going to schools to try and build partnerships with schools and PE departments.
Yeah. I mean, part of athletics is putting it into practice. And Qatar's a very small place, and it's not a sporting nation, but there are international schools all around with kids who love sport, love athletics, but equally didn't have any opportunities to compete in a sport like athletics. And as you know, Aspire's facilities are some of the best facilities in the world.
Incredible.
The fact that we had those is ridiculous. So started to try and I built a competition structure for our students to learn about competition. And it was very much in-house, but then started to invite schools in to compete in those competitions a bit more formally. And it was really just about raising the profile of our sport within the country, making it actually an option for people, for students, when it wasn't an option before.
Yeah. And then the last 18 months for you have been really interesting. As you know, you've taken on a new direction. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, part of while I was in the UK, I used to travel to international schools a lot to deliver athletics workshops. Kind of had to put those to the side a little bit while I was in Qatar, because I had a full-time job at the academy. We would travel a lot. But once I became like head of athlete development and was doing the whole pathway, I had teachers reaching out from all over the place, but particularly in Qatar, but all over the world. Where can I find resources for athletics, lesson plans for athletics? And I speak to where are you looking now? I'm looking on YouTube, and YouTube was just a disaster. And looking on tests, and there were a few on tests, but they were very low level, and there was really no structure. And even the England athletic stuff is real kids, never done sport before, let's just play. And then they have basically we're trying to qualify for the Olympics and nothing in between. So I basically decided to build one. That is the sport that I love, and we didn't have that resource. So I built my one out for athletics, which has 5 levels of development, which is basically here's how I would coach shot put and shot put skills at different age groups, different stages of development. And I basically ended up traveling around the world, taking that to schools, delivering my workshops and giving away that resource, and people loved it. But on that journey, I then met other coaches from other sports who were doing the same ideas, same traveling roadshow, who also didn't have any resources. They were giving away something they'd written in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint was what they're giving away. So we basically started getting together. The idea of I applied my framework across other sports, worked with them to apply it across other sports to create a resource that they can go and give away with theirs as well. And then, of course, we've then put it all onto the Performance Pathways platform. So the idea, I mean, it's using my curriculum that people liked, putting it across other sports, which then aligns those sports. So what you're doing in basketball, in terms of the skill level, the cognitive load required, aligns with what we're doing in athletics at our age. That's kind of the theory behind it.
Yeah, it's good, and it's been an fast-paced 18 months, and it seems to be growing really good. And people can obviously check that out through Performance Pathways when they get a chance. I'm really interested to maybe delve into and we spoke about this before, but the word performance, and how you like to kind of use that as a hook or maybe a controversial point. What are your sort of messages around performance in physical education?
Well, I mean, I put the word performance in the name because when I put it out there, what should I call this new business? What building? It was 100% the word that people said you shouldn't use. It just provoked so much, fire. Started a fire. I was like, okay, that. But I also realized that people don't understand what the word really means. So I think, and I think we'll probably come on to sports. But I think when we think about things like athletics and sports, we think about what we see on TV, which is the competition. But for me as an athlete, doing decathlon, I did maybe 4 decathlons a year. That's 8 days a year that I would actually be in competition. And then another 350 odd days where I'm doing something else. And that is what sport really is. It's not about the competition. So the performance side of it is not necessarily about what the outcome is. It's about how you do that process. How far can you go along that journey? I think performance is subjective. You could be, a 10-second 100-meter runner who runs 11 seconds, or a 14-second 100-meter runner who runs 13 seconds. Who was the higher performer on the day? And that's kind of the ethos that I try to take into performance. It's not about, I don't care if you win or lose. It's about, did you do your best? Are you pushing your own boundaries to try and get better all the time? I think that's really where the value of sport lies.
Yeah. And I think that's what made sort of Jake Humphries and Damien Hughes' podcast so sort of, engaging and interesting for me, because there are so many different definitions of performance or high performance. And, we can kind of start to talk about sport now, because this is a personal reflection, and that sometimes I see sport branded as potentially a negative thing in physical education by some, but then almost by others as it's the main thing about physical education. What do you see sport sort of places? And when I say sport, I also mean sort of like performance athletics and athletics as an activity. What does sport offer a PE curriculum, and what do we need to consider from your opinion?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think people assume that I'm sports mad, and I'm probably the least sporty sports person you've ever met in your life. I barely watch it because again, that's for me, sport is the process. It's not the competition. The competition part, I can take it or leave it. But I think we've known that we've known the positive benefits of sport for a long time. We see students who play sport come out really well-rounded people. And I think as we've delved down into that, we start to see, okay, there's not just the physical, but there's the social, there's the emotional, there's the mental side of it. And they're kind of like the big four that we're trying to get out of it. That's what we're trying to achieve, not just the physical anymore. But I think for me, sport provides the context for us to achieve those benefits. So I think one of the interesting things about sport is it gives you just the right amount of enjoyment and stress at the same time. And sometimes stress goes higher, sometimes the enjoyment goes higher, depending on how it's going. But that's really the fire that these things are forged in. It's that environment and that context. If you just try to do the social but without the sport, well, have you really developed social skills until you've tested them under pressure? Are you able to communicate as well as you think you are when you need to, when you have to? So I think if we're smart with sport and you don't see it just as competition, though you can use competition to heighten the stress, but you can also constrain games that, well, we're probably not going to win anyway because of the constraints. Therefore, more fun. We try to overcome it, and therefore a bit more social. That's where but I think it's that the sport gives the context for us to develop all those skills. I think when you take the context away, you lose that environment.
Yeah, I like it. And what you're doing, Martin, is chucking in even more sort of contentious potentially contentious words. Or you've talked about performance, sport, and then you said stress. You know, there'll be some PE teachers listening to this, coaches listening to this, saying, I don't want anyone in my care to feel stress, but stress is a positive, right? It can be used as a positive.
Yeah, I mean, but look, bones get stronger under stress. If you look at it physical, resilience is built through overcoming setbacks. You don't build resilience by learning about resilience. You build resilience by having a setback that you overcome. But this is where I say we have to be smart with how we set up the sport. Is that we don't want our students being under so much stress and so much pressure that they don't enjoy it. There has to be the balance between stress and joy. And I mean, when I'm working with athletes, I kind of use a third rule. A third of the time we should be doing stuff that you're really good at, you feel confident, you just like doing it and you're having fun. A third of the time we're in a learning environment. We're trying to do, we're not worried about the outcome at all, because we're talking, we're thinking, we're trying new stuff. And a third of the time I want you under pressure, because we want to see if you've learned it or not. We want to see if it cracks or not. We want to see if you can survive. But can you perform this under pressure like you're going to have to do in a competition environment? Maybe that's not, that last part maybe is not appropriate for students, but maybe it is. But we don't want to be. I think students put enough pressure on that on their own. If you put them in a game situation, some of them are going to really push that and enjoy that and thriving that. People are going to avoid it, but then let's not put them in that environment. That's okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I had a conversation with Kate Reynolds and James Crane about this, about, you know, with the well-being agenda at the minute is high on the agenda for young children, and would putting them in that sort of area of stress, uncomfortability outside the comfort zone for too long be detrimental. And like you said, we have to be quite careful around how we do that. And like you said, it works for maybe those athletes that are pushing themselves and wanting to, you know, have that optimal performance, and maybe that is what makes it right. But for a young child that comes to physical education and just wants to have a better relationship with movement, do they need as much time in that zone?
Yeah, but when I say stress, that doesn't mean necessarily under pressure. That could be. We remember when we're trying to select the right level of skill for them, it needs to be not so easy that they get bored, not so difficult that they give up, just the right amount of, and actually need to try and concentrate to learn something. That is still stress. That's still, this is maybe replace the word stress with difficulty. But we're looking for the right amount. It doesn't mean I want you stressed and nervous and shaking. I've seen coaches be there. Luckily, don't think I've created an environment where I've had kids shaking on the start line and being sick before a race. But I've seen that happen, and that's you've created the wrong environment. That's too much stress.
Yeah.
But I have had athletes that I've worked with that have stepped up to international level and didn't enjoy that environment at all, and then actually kind of fell out of the sport a couple of years later because they realized maybe it's not for me. Actually, maybe that was, as a young coach, that was my mistake of assuming you wanted that. The reason you're training is because you want that. Actually, the reason you're training is because you enjoy the social side of it and you enjoy the challenge of getting better. Actually, the competition environment is really not for you. But that's where we need to be aware that every student we have is different. Just because you're here training 3 days a week or practicing after school in every day doesn't necessarily mean you want to be in competition. You might just love the sport. But when I talk about stress, I'm really talking about the right level of challenge. And that could be challenge in learning a skill, but it could also be challenge of competition. But there is a right level of that, and it's not zero stress. It's not zero challenge.
Yeah, brilliant. I like that. So when we think about performance as a word in physical education, I'm guessing that one of the main sort of misconceptions would be that performance in PE means that I'm producing learners that are highly motor competent and enjoy competitive environments. And that might be a common misconception. What would your almost working definition of performance be in PE then? What are the other things that we need to consider in terms of performance?
So I consider it as a journey, hence why it's called performance pathways. Not performance outcomes. It's a pathway. It's a journey, and so I this is with the kids that I'm working with first time doing athletics, and people that I was coaching who were trying to get to World Juniors, coaching someone at European Junior Championship. Same process of what do you need to do to go to the next step? Not what do you need to do to go to the Olympics? What do you need to do to win medals? What do you need to do now, tomorrow, to get better? That's all it's about for me. Because the ultimate performance is going to be a combination of your talent and your commitment to doing the work that's needed. And we can only really control one of those. But learning to go on that journey, learning to try and get better every day, that's what transfers to outside of sport. Are you willing to do what it takes? And okay, again, in PE, that might not be. It doesn't. The wording doesn't come out necessarily. It doesn't land very well when you say, "Are you willing to do what it takes?" But when we're talking to students about, well, here's a new skill that you've not done before. Okay, what are you going to do to overcome this challenge? It's the same conversation, but it's done in a softer, more PE-friendly way. But that to me, when I'm talking about performance, I'm talking about the mindset and the processes that take you to performance. What you get in the end, I really don't care as an outcome.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to performance than just the physical. There's that biopsychosocial element, isn't there, as well? And that's kind of a nod to that. I guess. What are your stance around goal setting and personal targets then? Because I think from my understanding, we'll be more likely to do what it takes if we've had a say in the goals that we're trying to achieve. So do they marry up? Does that help that term performance if we've got a say in our own targets? And
so I actually took that kind of one step further and Aspire. So when I was working with the athletes at Aspire, these are school-age students who are talking about career in athletics or wanting to go to World Juniors and good sports people. We very rarely set individual goals, sat down and did your SMART goals and that kind of thing. I taught them how to do it. But then I would have the conversation with them one-on-one on track side during the lesson. We'd have these conversations day in, day out. But what I did do is sit with the group and say, what are our goals for the year as a team? How do we want other people, other group training groups, other coaches, how do we want them to perceive us as a team? And we came up with a list of words. And I would then use those words to hold them accountable. You said that you wanted to be this and this and this. One of the words that came out, which I was really impressed for people with second language, was prestige. We want to have prestige as a team.
Yeah.
I mean, we want other troops looking at us and say, wow, look at these guys. They look like athletes. That's how they defined it. That's easy for me to hold them accountable to. But that's also the behaviors we need for them to progress. So we set goals for behaviors rather than outcome goals.
And that's just that for me seems like fantastic practice in all of education, in that co-construction, student voice, relatedness of that group. Sort of there's some practice in schools now where classes are writing like a code that they all kind of abide to, and whether you see that as a good thing or bad thing, whether it has to be that formal, what it does is it sets like a precedent and expectations for all, doesn't it? Go on.
Okay, what we did was all of that was part of an education program. So even things like somebody turned up late for training, they turned up 10, 15 minutes late, everyone's already warming up, and said, okay, you guys get to decide whether this is okay or not. Not me. I'm not going to tell him he's late. You get to decide whether he's late or not. And then over the rest of that week or that month, we're having conversations about, well, why would it be important to turn up on time? What happens? Why is that important for you as an athlete? Why is that also important for your teammates and your classmates? Why is it important if you turn up on time? And then over time, they kind of decided that acceptable was about 6 minutes for some reason. Okay, fine. If that's as a team, that's what we decided. But rather than me telling someone off for being late, you guys get to be leading this, and we will then discuss it and use this. Everything like that is a chance for education.
Yeah, I got a question that has just popped into my head now, and I haven't preempted you, but I think it's worthwhile asking. because you've done work with schools in the United Kingdom and you're now doing work with schools around the world, which is fantastic, and kudos for that. But are there any differences in terms of what PE teachers are asking you for and what PE looks like from your opinions in those places?
I would say the biggest difference probably is their relationship to competition. So look at things like, I mean, British schools, Middle East have some competitions going on at the moment for under 11s, under 13s. For BIS, had their swimming gala, and these things look impressive. They do. And I know that they're in some ways they're elitist in that not every student gets to go. But the ones that really love sport, that kind of top 25% of our students who love sport, they get to do sport in the environment that they really want to, which is great. But what the schools in the UK tend to be that shy away from any form of competition because they're worried about upsetting the lower end, which is also understandable. It's not fun to be in a place where you're going to lose every week and you know you're going to lose. What's the point? But what I would say is the schools that I visit internationally that do take competition seriously also have much higher levels of participation across the school, which I find quite interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they take that ethos across everything they do. And I don't think it's just a sports program. I think when they come to the sports program, you're coming to whichever sport you want to do, and they have A, B, C, D teams, so everyone's welcome. But when you come here, you're coming here to get better. You're not coming here just to have fun, although we will have fun, of course. Everyone's going to be the team, but we want you to get better. We're going to support you to get better. And I think the students value that. And then you see they're doing the same, that those schools have the same students in the drama club, in the music club, in the orchestra. It's just this high performance ethos of the school carries into sport. But as a result of that, participation goes up, which I find really interesting. It's almost opposite philosophies in terms of how to engage people. But the high performance end seems to actually have higher engagement.
Yeah, pardon to use the high jumping pun, but raises the bar in terms of having those expectations. It kind of brings everyone else along with them.
And I think if you look at stuff we're doing, even something like the podcast, when you do the podcast, every time you want to get a little bit better. I'm sure you really enjoy the conversations and meeting lots of different people. You also want the podcast to get better and it to grow. And I think we're the same in everything we do. There's not many people you meet who are just happy being rubbish at something and just enjoy it. They still, even if they are rubbish, they still want to get better. And I think the kids are the same. I think they come and they do want to be taught. They do want to learn. And I think those environments kind of enable that. And the other thing they have is a huge team ethos. You see these schools really that they have their uniforms, but the students really support each other in those environments. And I think the schools encourage that.
That sense of belonging, yeah. It's worth probably unpacking the word pathways then, because we've looked at performance. There's some of the pathways as well. So what do you think in terms of, like maybe PE teachers listening in the curriculum design? Is there a space for participation pathway and maybe for want of a better word, because we talked about definitions today, but a performance pathway within a PE curriculum, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a lot of these schools will have that in there, which will be, I guess when I was at school, it's kind of like the A group and the B group. And a lot of them, I've seen it done in many different ways, as I'm sure you have. But some of them are the really high performance kind of mindset where we want to win for BIS games. They will have a participation pathway, which will still be sport. But if you're not that worried about the competition, here's competitive basketball, here's participation basketball. There's other schools that have done it, which are here's basketball, here's invasion games and team games. If you don't want to play basketball, you can come and just do games, which I think also works quite nicely. And then there's one more that I was going to say that just now slipped my mind. But And then there's basketball, and then there's doing something completely different to sport. Like if you're not really a sporty person, come and do something else, and do outdoor adventurous activities or something like that. But the ones that really are just not sporty kids and not interested at all. And I think there's value in all of those. And I think schools, I think it's really in the delivery of it. And the ones that do really well, I think, are the ones that give choice. Because you could be a really, like the athlete I had who was good enough to compete internationally but didn't like competition. He may well have chosen the participation one, and that's his choice. And if we want the long-term engagement, that's the right place for him to be as well. So I think the ones that offer both pathways and offer choice in both pathways, and the teachers just stand back. If you don't want to be in the team, that's fine. But that's also the ones that are not necessarily that good can also choose a competitive one. If they just because you're not allowed to be in the team doesn't mean you can't come and play and compete.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, that's great. Let's go into the quickfire questions, and it's a kind of an ongoing theme here that the quickfire questions aren't so quickfire on these podcasts. So, but we'll ask them anyway. The first one is what are your non-negotiables for creating positive experiences for every child in physical education? What would they be?
I mean, my number one is that I don't allow any of my students or athletes to laugh at somebody who has tried really hard. Somebody who's putting in effort to something and they're last or they're slow, or somebody who's tried a new skill and has failed. We can laugh with them because sometimes people, if we work with long jumpers and they try a new technique, it can be a spectacular amount of sand eating. And that's fine, and we can laugh, but we shouldn't laugh at them because we need to create that safe environment where they can experiment with movement. And so we, as much as we can, I always tell people I cheer twice as much when someone fails as when they succeed. Because when they failed, it means they tried something new. And if you try enough new things, then eventually you'll find out what works, and that's how you succeed in the long run. When we laugh at people because they make a mistake, they're then unlikely to try again. And I think that's then going to carry over to life after sport when we want them to have the confidence to turn up at a netball club. And I might not be a good netball player, I might not even know the game, but at least it's safe. I can try new things, and I know it's a safe environment to try and learn a new volleyball, a netball skill. If we've laughed at them when they've made mistakes before, they're unlikely to go and try something they don't really know.
I love that reducing the fear of failure. I wonder, have you got any more non-negotiables or that you jotted?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty simple.
I wonder whether, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but your experience as an athlete, I'm not making assumptions here, I hope, but was there any work with coaches that you did that was based on psychology?
No, and it's one of those things I look back now and really wish that I had. So because when you're on the way up, things are really easy, because especially with our students, and when you're new to athletics or new to sport, everything you learn makes you better. So I would do a decathlon and I'd get 7 or 8 personal bests every time I stepped on the track. Even at the Commonwealth Games, I got 8 personal bests out of 10 events and won a medal. But then it gets harder and harder and harder to find those improvements. And the pressure also builds and builds and builds. So working forward London 2012 and the pressure built, 100% I could have done with a psychologist. Mainly what I've learned about psychology has come through coaching and come through what I've learned about psychology through business.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because a lot of your sort of key messages today have been more about, I would say, psychosocial factors than the physical factors. And like you're talking about environments and personal journeys, and it's just, I wondered whether that was influenced by psychological coaches through your journey or something that you've picked up along the way.
No, I mean, it's come very much from, I retired 8 years ago from doing 10 years of sport, and you kind of crossed across the finish line of my last race. Went, okay, that's that done. 10 years of training.
Yeah.
What was the point of that? And it took me a good 5-6 years to really work out what it was about. And because in the end, nobody remembers who won medals and when. And if I'm really honest, I actually don't know where my medal is right now. It's somewhere.
Right.
Genuinely, I don't know where it is, because what I realized was how many people were watching me on that journey. Friends and family, the athletes I was working with, and the positive influence I had on them through inspiring them with my journey. How many kids I've met in schools, and I do it less often now because I'm a bit, I'm an old man now for athlete terms, but how many kids I showed them my medal. There's no bronze left on it because I just gave it to the kid. They hand it around. Literally, there's no bronze left on it because thousands of kids have touched it. And for that, I realized that's what it was about. The medal I see it as another qualification, basically something I put on my CV. I did that thing. It doesn't feel like me anymore. It's too long ago. I definitely wouldn't do it anymore. But the reflection of why did I put myself through that, and what was the positive benefit to other people as well as myself. I think that's how I justify it to myself. Is that?
Yeah, and there's a lot of similarities with what you've just said. With I was very, very fortunate to work with Marlon Devonish in Shanghai, and he would do a similar thing with his gold medals. He would like, it's not me boasting. This is about me trying to inspire and almost justifying to myself why I did what I did. Obviously, it's a celebration of his successes as well, but he was in a similar sort of role to you in my school in Shanghai. He was working with sort of those who wanted to compete, but on their mindset, and was talking to them a lot about how it's not just the physical prowess that you need, it's the other things. And so there's a lot of similarities there. I was just fascinated around that psychological piece and your justification is brilliant. So next question, if you have a mantra, what would that be?
I don't know whether you consider it a mantra, but kind of my coaching philosophy, my teaching philosophy is mainly around, if something goes really well done you. If something goes badly, that's my fault. Don't worry, I'll fix it, or we will fix it. And that sounds very obvious, but actually we see quite a lot the other way around, and it's subtle sometimes, obvious other times, where it's the school team did really well, or my athlete did really well. Look how great I did my team.
Yeah.
And then you don't perform, and you start talking about, well, they don't really have resilience. They weren't really fighting back when they needed to, and now we're laying it on the student about why they didn't perform. But when they did great, that was me. Our school team's great. Our department is doing great. And actually, it has to be the other way around, because when you think about that from the student's point of view, I did really great today, and the teacher thought, well, it's because they're a great teacher, and I did badly today, and it's because I don't have the characteristics of a high performer. It's quite a negative. You've taken away their joy, and you've given them all the whatever. I don't want to. What the word that went to come out is not probably the right word for the podcast, but you've given them the positive side of it. Yeah. So it has to be the other way around, because imagine when they're going well, it's a chance for us to feed that fire in them, to build that passion. You're doing well, you're enjoying it, keep going. When things are not going well, that's our chance to pick them up and teach them resilience. Not to say we don't have it, but okay, what are you going to do to overcome it? Yeah. I'm here to help you along the way. It's a very different experience. So even though it seems quite subtle, I think we probably all think that we do it that way. The reason I have it is is because we have to remind ourselves sometimes that it's not about us.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. Another potentially controversial question here is, if you could remove something from physical education, what would you remove?
I mean, this would probably be more controversial than you thought it would be, but I would remove people running the 800 and 1500 meters in PE classes. Because I really, really can't see what benefit we're getting out of it, or that there's so many things we could better use our time for. So when I do my workshops around the world, I don't include endurance in it. If people want it, fine, we can deliver it, and we start talking. We do some work on pace judgment and race tactics. Have it. Remember when we've got 25% of our students who absolutely love sport. When it comes to run the 800 or 1500 meters, that probably becomes 5%. There's maybe one in each year group who is the 1500 meter runner. When we do that, what do we actually teach them in terms of skill? But maybe we could talk to them about tactics, but they're so strung out. Some of them are running it in 5 minutes, some of them running it in 15 or walking it in 15. We didn't do any tactics here. We didn't really do any pace judgment and those kind of race strategies. So if you're going to do that stuff, do it in a sports hall, round some cones, round a 50-meter track where we can do multiple repetitions. We can play games. Running the 800, 1500 meters, they're not going to get fitter from doing that once. I really don't see the benefit of it. Apart from if you want to do that, do it in the after school club. Maybe the better place for it for the ones that 5% who do love it.
Yeah, brilliant. I concur completely and utterly in terms of there's probably more harm and detrimental learning experiences taking place there than positive. I agree. If next question then, if you could provide someone who's about to embark on a career in teaching physical education a golden nugget or a piece of advice, what would that be?
I would probably say that there is no right and wrong way, even though we're always looking for the best way to deliver PE. And there's I think people like to think, well, there's the performance pathways way of doing it, and there's the PE scholar way of doing it, and there's someone else's way of doing it. They're all tools. And you have to remember that every single student you meet has a different relationship with sport and PE and physical activity. And some love physical movement, some hate it, and some that love it are really good at it. Some that love it are bad at it. Some that hate it are good at it. And there's and some of them love dance and artistic gymnastics, and some of them love football and team sports. So when you start crossing all these, put these on a matrix, every student has their own point on the map. And therefore, the best teachers are not the ones who have the best lesson plans. The best teachers have very simple lesson plans, but they're really good at tailoring it to the student that's in front of them. And I don't think that even means changing activities necessarily. I think it's changing the way they present the activity to the student. Again, on those big four: physical, mental, emotional, social. How you deliver that activity to different students in the same class will get them engaged for different reasons, and they're still learning the skill. They're still physically active, but they're getting different things out of it. And so I think that's it. I don't think you need to shop around, and you don't think you need to search the internet for that special exercise or special activity that's going to engage your students. This activity is going to engage your student is the one that you give them the right message about when you deliver it.
Yeah, that's really nice advice. And I think it's about making sure that they stay true to their philosophy, but being pragmatic, I think, is the word that I try to use. And yes, go and broaden your arsenal, explore all these resources, ask questions, speak to people, observe lessons, but make the right decision for the group of children in front of you with a better understanding of what's available, rather than sticking rigidly to a certain approach that doesn't necessarily work all the time. It's an echoed point that I would share with our trainees as well. So that's great. Final question then is, if PE could be one word for young people, what would that one word or phrase be?
I mean, I'd probably say it's the journey, or the discovery. Discovery might be a better word. We're discovering what you enjoy. We're discovering different ways of moving, different techniques. We're discovering different modes of communication, different passions, different ways to improve. I think we can open the door to them. But again, everyone's an individual. So what works for different people it's going to be different. So we've got to allow them to work it out for themselves. So that's why I think you take it as that kind of maybe journey of discovery. Maybe you could combine the two. But I really think it's not about us saying, this is how you throw a shot put, this is how you shoot a basketball. But it's how are you going to shoot a basketball? Why are you going to shoot a basketball? Where are you going to shoot a basketball from? Do you like shooting a basketball? Well, let's shoot someone. Let's find out. So I think that's what it is about. If we're looking at that lifelong engagement, it's giving them as broad of experience as possible, and as broad in sports, broad in different physical activities, broad in skills, until they'll find out what they like, what they enjoy, and then we can start helping them to explore different avenues within those activities, different ways to improve within those activities. That's our job. It's not to even though we're teachers, our job is not to teach. Our job is to enable learning. It's maybe that way of looking at it.
Nice. Yeah, and I think that journey of discovery is quite a nice phrase that links in with almost like the piece on physical literacy around relationship with movement for life. And that journey of discovery kind of is a nice sort of way to marry those two together. Martin, it's been brilliant having a conversation with you this early afternoon here in the UK, and a similar sort of early afternoon-ish over in Saudi. Really great to meet you in person and unpack your thoughts around physical education, your experiences and your messages. I've enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on.
No, I really appreciate it. It's nice to spend some time talking with other people who are trying to push it forward in different ways, different conversations. And it's nice being part of this community. This is one of the things that I've really discovered about PE as I've moved deeper and deeper into it, is the community is amazing. And it's thanks to people like you who bring that community together. So I really appreciate you having me as a part of that community as well.
No, thanks, Martin. And if people that are listening want to get in contact with you or communicate with you, where can they find you?
I mean, I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn, pretty active on LinkedIn. Not so much any other social media channels, but then if not, then head over to performancepathways.co.uk and you'll find everything you need there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Martin. It's been a pleasure.